Hello, and welcome back to Why Geopolitics Matters, the podcast. This week's episode, we will be covering Russian missiles entering the Polish airspace. We're going to also talk about the migrants who infiltrated the Spanish territory of Ceuta. And we'll also go over the new agreement from the Board of Peace regarding Gaza. But first, we're going to start with our fun topic. We're going to talk about novelty candidates. They've been in the news recently, and the one that caught my eye was one out of Colombia. 3 days before the recent election, Luis Carlos Rua, who is 34, revealed himself as the person behind Elefante Blanco, the white elephant. It's a reference to the term used to describe overpriced, abandoned, or ultimately useless public works, which he had spent the previous 5 years exposing on social media. He is now a senator in Colombia, and if you look at the pictures of his character, it's perfect. It's just so cartoonish and amazing. And I just thought we could talk about maybe some of the other interesting characters that have been popping up on the news that wouldn't be your normal politician. One of them who's very popular right now, his name is Count Binface. He is running up against Nigel Farage of Reform UK fame. He called an election for Clacton-on-Sea, and Count Binface has very interesting platform. He wants to build one affordable house, not just affordable housing, but just one. And he wants to also get solar panels on every single house, which is really interesting since Reform UK is very interested in non-climate change issues. And he also, his costume is just incredible. He's wearing this like trash can on his head, and I don't people know who he is. He's a comedian and he's satiring the whole thing, but it's also just really interesting to see some of these characters actually getting into politics, but also like winning, and it's certainly a possibility in the UK. So, did you guys have anybody that caught your eye about these novelty candidates?
I think Mr. Binface was the one I saw the most in the past weeks, and it's just amazing how the caricatures of real politicians and like, how politics is going. He's getting into our daily lives. Like Mr. Binface is everywhere and is being quite
Wait a
popular.
second, he is in the gentry, so he's count.
Count.
So he's got a title.
My mistake. But like it's just amazing how it got there. And it just reminds me of like these like there's actually in the past month, in the past year, there's been so many political movements that are definitely like in the same vibe as Count Binface. And I'm thinking mostly about the cockroach movement in India, which is taking like they are taking emblems so ridiculous to talk about the ridiculousness of certain ideas in politics. I love it. Like this thing of like kind of a nonchalant movement. I like it. It works well, at least.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know what to say about this because sometimes it sounds just like a comedy, but it could be like this kind of tragedies when you just instead of cry you start to laugh. um, like just about the topic of Colombia, of course. Not exactly about the white elephant. But about like these new measures that they are applying, like curious fact that I read last week. Um, they are closing some embassies around the world, and one of these embassies that will be closed next month is the embassy in Czech Republic here in Prague. And curious fact, it was open just last year for the previous government. So, like after and years that Colombia were trying to establishing like this connection, this diplomatic connection with the Czech Republic, uh, they did it. They had like a milestone last year to open this new embassy in Prague, and now they are closing it just 1 year later. So uh, I don't know what to think. I'm not the expert on diplomatic relations of the Colombian government. That well, this kind of things, this kind of decisions, I think that it's related with this concept of a sharp piece of political messaging.
Hmm.
So, like the El Elefante Blanco. Uh, I think that this is a great example of how it's working, or that I is still asking, like, okay, what is the political messaging for this kind of decisions? Please, I want to know it. you know?
Yeah, and sometimes you can see that some of these candidates, like, are they taking it too far? Like, is it really appropriate for them to get as far as they do? Because I remember during, I think it was the 2012 election for Obama. I don't know if you guys remember this. I don't think this was international news, but Stephen Colbert, he used to have his own show on Comedy Central. It was called The Colbert Report, and he decided that he was going to run for president, but only in the state of South Carolina, because that's where he's from. So he paid to get himself onto the ballot. It was a couple $100, maybe around $2,000. And he was trying to get on both ballots because he didn't want to like pick a side. He was trying to be Republican and Democratic so he could like cover his losses. But like in the end, the the political parties had their say and they're like, you're not taking this seriously, so you're not going to be on the ballot and all this stuff. But then you have people who are celebrities who end up being in office, in high office, and it's like, is this a really good idea?
Yeah, precisely. It's like when you are wondering these kind of things, you start to like the second question that comes to my mind is like, are they wondering the same than me? Are they trying to analyze in the same way
Yeah.
that the reasonable people try to understand it?
Yeah,
It's
and
like,
they're, like, drinking their own Kool-Aid, like, "Oh, I am really popular, like, my
yeah,
ideas are really good." It's like, but
yeah,
Silvio Berlusconi, who had that big personality, Donald Trump, we don't need to go into that, but, like, all these people who are trying to, like, win elections, they do have a popularity factor, and they do have, like, a niche that they can do. Are they actually good for the population? Who knows? But it's just absolutely wild, and I just thought that would be like a fun thing to talk about because there's been so many new characters popping up in the political elections this year.
Yeah.
And what I think we'll do now is we'll go over to Antoine and tell us more about what happened in Poland this week.
Yes. So on 30 July, a Russian cruise missile entered Polish airspace and crashed near Tarnowa Kolonia, which is in eastern Poland, during a large Russian attack against Ukraine. There were no casualties, happily, but Polish and NATO aircraft were scrambled and air defense systems were placed on alert. So Polish authorities later identified the weapon as a Russian Kh-101 cruise missile, and Prime Minister Donald Tusk described the event as serious, but stated that there were no evidence that Poland had been deliberately targeted, which is also significant political precision concerning such an event. Every such incident tests NATO's detection systems, decision-making procedures, and political unity, and it also raises a difficult question: how should an alliance respond when a Russian missile or drone enters its territory? Talking primarily about Russian because it's the primary first threat that we think of in Europe so far. And what about also the evidence of deliberate intent when it remains unclear? So this is where the broader issues of drone become particularly important. Over the past month, Romania has experienced several incidents linked to the war in the Black Sea region. In June, a Ukrainian maritime drone reportedly lost control after Russian electronic interference and exploded near an oil terminal in the port of Constanta. Also, no one was killed, but parts of the port were evacuated. And in July, Romania also scrambled an F-16 fighter jets and shot down suspected Russian drone that had entered its airspace. So other drone incursions were also reported in the region. It's not new. There's also similar concerns that have emerged on NATO's northern and eastern flanks. In Latvia, for example, a French Rafale fighter shot down a drone that entered NATO airspace from Russia. And these incidents show that the problem is not limited to one country or one type of weapon. It's like coming, of course, primarily from the war zone in Ukraine, but these massive waves of drone represents a serious threat as well, not only for Ukraine, but as well for European borders. So here, the central difficulty is also the loss of control. The threat is no longer confined to traditional military targets as well. Drones can approach ports, energy facilities, airports, military bases, pipelines, and logistics hubs. Seen it in the past couple of months, in the past year, and even since the beginning of the war. For example, on 8th of, today actually, Bulgaria reported that a drone entered its territory, exploded near the Romanian border, and it was close to an infrastructure linked to the Trans-Balkan gas pipeline. But the main challenge, both for NATO and the European Union, is to build an integrated system capable of detecting and responding to low-flying, slow, and potentially ambiguous threats. That means better radar coverage, stronger electronic warfare capabilities, cheaper interceptors, faster information sharing, and clear rules of engagements. And that is precisely what European countries are trying to build as part of the Defense Readiness Roadmap 2030, which will try to answer the drone threats. But it has only been announced in late 2025, so I don't think that in 6 months it has been able to do a lot so far. And the objective is not simply to shoot down every object, it is to ensure that NATO can distinguish better an accident, technical failure, or a deliberate provocation and an act of aggression, and respond proportionately to each one. And I believe it is fair to say that these incidents are becoming more frequent in an increasingly crowded and contested airspace around NATO's eastern flank, and that that risk is likely to persist for as long as the war in Ukraine continues, which I don't think will end very soon, to be honest.
Yeah. Um, I think that's reading this article. It feels more like a deja vu because I think that it's not the first time that this kind of things are happening since the wars begin. I think. I mean, like this kind of situation related with the missiles detonates in Poland. It's not just more about the facts about um, like how the barrage launched at Ukraine. It's, I mean, not an attack aimed at Poland, but it caused no injuries or damage, as far as I know. So I have a question about this, or something that it's not bit taken into account from NATO. It's, did Russia attack NATO literally, or how many times can something be treated as an accident before it stops being one? You know,
That's probably the greatest question, because I mean, so far, I mean, um, bigger problem, of course, that there's war next to European Union countries, and that's why it indirectly implies as well that we will face such incidents, and like with the more effective defense against massive swarm of drones is, I think the bigger the threat for such incidents to happen is. What I mean by that is that we've seen that in the past couple of months, Ukraine is getting, I think, better at disrupting and preventing massive drone airstrike. But it comes also with Russia. How I could say that comes with Russia launching more and more massive attacks. And I think what is um, the easiest to see is that the more important, the greater there is a chance to disrupt, to impact a target. And that's what I think Russia is trying to do. They're just counting on the number and not anymore on the effectiveness of certain types of weapons. And you can see that definitely with the fact that these massive swarm of drones are very cheap to produce comparatively to hypersonic missiles that have been used I remember at the beginning of the war, and that we haven't seen that much in the past year, I could say. So, like, the money comes at a greater importance now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is also part of to understand the NATO position, like the normalization of that incident is itself uh, the main core of the situation. Like how long you can still accepting or still um, saying that it was like, okay, we are talking about an incident, we are talking about something out of the scope of the situation. That well, uh, from the legal framework of this kind of situations, that I can say it's a missile crossing into NATO territory triggers the Article 5, technically. So, uh, so a straight projectile is not an armed attack in the sense of the Article 51 of the United Nations Charter, and it doesn't automatically activate collective defense. But you have like the both sides of the situation. That's why NATO answers in the language of deterrence, not war, let's say. Uh, so it's yet another reckless act by Russia, and it's a dangerous consequence of its war. You know, it's like, it's just like try to, like a saying in Spanish, tapar el sol con un dedo. It's like try to hide the sun with the finger, you know. From your perspective, you are trying to hide the real thing, but it's still there. So I don't know.
Yeah, and the thing with Ukraine, though, is that I think I just read this morning that they were hit with like 600 drone attacks overnight. And that number just doesn't seem like a sustainable number. But then you find out how cheaply made these drones are. And it does really tell you more about how they were able to get their technology up to scratch so that it's not as inexpensive of a war for Russia either, because their economy isn't in the greatest shape either because they've completely militarized their economy. I think that is a big factor for them, but also Ukraine still hasn't received their anti-weapons package that the U.S. promised a couple months ago. So they're still waiting on their I don't know what they're called. Uh, what are they called?
I
I can't.
forgot. because I
The
know that.
Patriot missiles that they've
Yeah.
been wanting. And then they wanted to say that, so they wanted to get their Patriot missiles and be able to use those. They want to be able to manufacture them in Ukraine so they didn't have to wait for shipping time because, customs and all that stuff. But it's all just, it doesn't seem like it's moving anywhere. Like, you're making these small incursions that, uh, Manuel was talking about, and then you're also doing these tit for tat on civilian infrastructure, and nobody's talking to each other anymore. So it just seems like it's like, what is NATO actually doing? Okay, yeah, they're deterring from making it from escalating, but luckily none of these incursions have been hit major populations. So it's definitely something to keep an eye out and to understand better of what is actually happening over there, because it's not in the news like everything else is. It's not high priority, but it is high priority for the people that have to live on the borderland up next to Russia. So it's definitely something we'll keep on top of. And you should also check out Antoine's article about Romania. That is up on the website. He wrote that a couple of weeks ago, so you guys should definitely read more about that if you want to learn more. But now we're going to go to Manuel, and he's going to tell us about the migrants in Ceuta.
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, coming from the east side of European Union, let's go now to the Mediterranean lands in the south of the continent with Spain, and also the intercontinental sharing with the North Africa coast. So we have this situation that, of course, it's been chaotic and really popular in the last days. Since now it's been 10 days, I think, since the first situation started. In the city of Ceuta, that it's a Spanish city, autonomous Spanish city, that it's a conclave in the territory of North Africa, so next to Morocco. We have this situation that they are calling currently the Ceuta crisis, because currently 22 European Union leaders gain up against Spain's Pedro Sanchez, over his migration policy. So this is a really situation that it goes more about the politics of the region. We are talking about an immigration crisis from Morocco. At the beginning, the press, it was trying to say that, or well, the government actually, the official version, it was 100 of Moroccans trying to crossing the border to Ceuta. And in a couple of hours, that hundreds of people, according with the records, it became thousands. And we still don't know how exactly it's the length of people. We are talking first about 2,000, 3,000. Next day, we are talking about 40,000, according with the mayor of the city of Ceuta. And then we are saying like, no. Actually, I think that we are more than 50,000. One day, the news, it was saying like, no, in total we are talking about 70,000. So it was crazy, the misinformation of the situation, not just in the political level, but also in this kind of humanitarian crisis. Just to understand the panorama, Ceuta, as an autonomous city, it has a total population of 80,000 inhabitants. So talking about of 50,000 people running and crossing the borders, it's something that it's not a precedent. at least for this city. So we are talking that more than the 50% of the real population of the city tried to cross to them. And so, of course, that these kind of numbers are insane. But also we have to see what is happening from the perspective of the leaders of the countries. Um, from one side, Spain with Pedro Sanchez president trying to keep the situation in a regular uh, problem of immigration that they can control. On the other hand, the realm of Morocco trying to explain that it's not something related with them. It was a civil answer or civil reaction, that they are not related with the behavior of the actions of the civil population that crossed to Ceuta. In both ways, we are talking about crazy situations from the human rights perspective. Uh, the application of Spanish law, even taking into account that a really significant number of these people that cross the border are underage. So that's also an special chapter of the human rights and civil law, civil rights and even the internal legislation of Spain about the process with these people. We are talking about a lot of human rights violations. We are talking about not a good handle of the situation from the Spanish government and the support that the Ceuta city is receiving. But on the other hand, we have the political situation, the political perspective, or the future panorama that could be represent for Spain itself. It could be considered an attack to the sovereignty of the country. Of course, we can take it. We can think it in that way. It could be an alert for the national security of Spain about the borders, about the people, about the territory. Of course, it is. We just have to see the back in history to understand the relationship between Spain and Morocco in the last, I think, 60, 70 years. Ceuta and also Melilla, that it's another autonomous city in the coast of North Africa, are in the same situation. And what could represent an attack for the sovereignty of these people living there? Of course, they are in this danger of feeling the insecurity. NATO, it's cannot be related according with the article number 3, I think, because despite that it's we are talking the territory and the sovereignty of one NATO member, we are not talking about territory in European continent. So that's the real exceptional case for the structure of the defense protocols and cooperation of NATO. So we are running in a really historical success, and we have to be monitoring the situation, because after 10 days of these massive crossings, the Spanish government is still dealing with everything, with the situation, and we still don't know what it could happen in the next days, the next months, to Spain.
Yeah, and there's really two things that are going on. Number one is that the majority of the people who crossed over have been sent back. So there's still a couple of people who are trying to apply for asylum. It's not completely under control, like you said, but like a good chunk of the people who came over have been sent back. The second thing was the timing of this incident was really interesting because this isn't the first time that there's been a questionable influx that may have been done by the Moroccan government. There's no it hasn't ever been like completely clear, but a couple years ago, and I think it was 2021, that the borders of Western Sahara were talked about with the Moroccan government and Spain supporting Western Sahara. So recently, Pedro Sanchez met up with the government in Algeria, and they may have discussed some things about Western Sahara as well. So when those talks happen and then something happens in the enclave, it just kind of makes you raise your eyebrows a little bit of like, are you testing the waters? Are you testing the fences? Is this Jurassic Park? I don't know, but it just feels like the timing was a little bit strange for this to happen, especially since the recent talks. And what some of the most horrific things were, I mean, they were basically saying, oh, the misinformation was because of Russia, because of Israel. Like everybody was jumping on the bandwagon saying, no, it was just this and that. And it's like, of course, nobody's ever going to get like the full story of everything. You can't just blame it on intelligence agencies and infiltrating social media. So like, it is something that people have been talking about as well. So it's definitely an interesting situation that just happened.
Yeah, and I think it also highlights like a very important thing. It's the growing use of immigrant population as an hybrid weapon. We've seen it used notably by Belarus against Poland, and I think also in the past month, there's still like some release of immigrants towards the Poland borders, and it's impressive how you can use the distress of specific population as an hybrid threat towards another country. Uh, in Poland, it's directly an hybrid threat to uh, let's say challenge European borders, but it's more or less the same in of what happened in Ceuta. If we see it directly as an attack from the Moroccan government, and we already know that there's tensions with both the enclave of Ceuta and Melilla uh, in northern Africa. So it's always questionable how and why these populations and that much people were actually involved in the crossings.
Yeah, definitely a developing issue. Using this weaponization to try to extract some kind of deal with another country is definitely something interesting to watch. And also, I believe, never mind, I'm not going to get into it. Otherwise, we'll just talk forever on this subject.
It's okay.
So we'll go to the next topic, which will be the Israeli strikes on Gaza, which is undermining the recent deal announced by the Board of Peace for the disarmament of Hamas, which was announced by Donald Trump's Truth Social last week. The Hamas negotiator spokesperson responded to this announcement to the Wall Street Journal, stating that they had not agreed to hand over its weapons and did not agree to Israeli involvement. And so on the other side, a spokesman for the Israeli Prime Minister's office pushed back against the terms of the agreement, which Israel has not signed. Quote, the version that has been made public does not reflect Israel's positions, end quote. Gaza is still under heavy control by Israel, where basic supplies are not getting into the territory. The IDF is still attacking Gaza, even after almost a year of a ceasefire that's coming up in October, uh, the 1 year anniversary. The most recent attacks on Gaza included killing civilians and destroying medical supplies. And shortly after the Board of Peace announced this deal, the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel pledged total victory over Hamas, stating that, quote, we're not withdrawing from our current lines until Hamas is totally disarmed, end quote. The deal does not yet include a firm timeline for Hamas to give up its heavy weapons or for Israeli forces to gradually withdraw from Gaza. So this is going to be the main point for both of them. Why would Hamas give up their weapons when Israel keeps pushing all of Gazan citizens to the coast? And why would they give up the one thing that they have left? The territory is mostly covered by Israel, so it's really difficult for Hamas to actually say, yeah, sure, we'll just give it up. But their ideology is Israel shouldn't exist. And I'm not saying that that's what it should be. Israel does exist, it's there. So honestly, it's just each group is not going to give up the other side until somebody is completely destroyed. So, and who is that at this point? I mean, Israel is making a pretty good bang for it. And with the Board of Peace making these announcements when neither side has signed off on them, does it mean anything? So it's such a strange like limbo for them to be in there, and especially since it's been almost 10 months of a ceasefire, and I've been hearing about bombings every day in Gaza. I'm sure you guys have too, and supplies are still not getting into them. Children are still dying in there. Hospitals are being blown up because they think that Hamas is uh, located underneath in the tunnels. So it's just like it's a never-ending situation. It just feels like every time the United States government decides to make a announcement about something, it's the other parties aren't even aware of it, agreed to it, signed off on any of it. It just seems like a weird pattern that nobody's actually talking to each other, but there's all these announcements.
I think what we can see as well in Palestine is directly the non-success of fully military missions, and especially if we think about Hamas as a terrorist group, and let's say Occidental countries have dealt with quite a number of terrorist groups in the past. In Afghanistan, in Iraq, it's been the same as well to win the population, and in Central Sahel. Well, if you want to deal with them, it's not only a question of who's gonna survive in the end. It has to be both. I mean, both, even a tri-party solution, both with the society, with as well an economic perspective for the population there. Because yeah, we've seen like there's no assistance for the population. Everything is getting bombed. The let's say the economy is running, but in a way that is not um,
There's
maybe
no
not
growth
all
to it.
yeah, and probably not always very licit as well.
Hmm.
Um, and as well, the full military mission it's not working, and it's exactly the same as that we observe in South Lebanon. Doing an entire and a full military operation won't resolve the political issues behind, and there's no real political discussions going on to have the most peaceful agreements possible. Because in the end, it is all what it is about. It's about the populations, about the civilians who are getting killed, bombed, murdered in these territories.
Yeah, this this specific topic, it's kind of how to say it. You always have to handle it with irony because, like a crucial fact, as I can see with all this panorama, it's that from my perspective, Israel defies Trump, and it could be with with the concept of the irony because you are defying your most valuable and most important supporter. So, why Israel hasn't actually signed? I think that it's like a signatory breaking a deal. For it's one party using the gap between announced and agreed. You know, it's like, okay, we have this on the table, but we still cannot use the word agreed for this operation. So you are like playing, or you are walking through this concept of ambiguity, and you also have their electoral perspective, because you are talking about the decision of people. I think that this is like the most ambiguous of the explanation, that it's something domestic, something internal of the Israeli territory, but it's not. But it's the way that they are trying to explain all this situation. Actually, I think that one analyst argued about Netanyahu will continue with procrastination, evasion, and disruption until the Israeli elections, that I think it's on October. So he's just trying to postpone the action, to postpone the agreement. So after elections, we will see what is happening with all this, like the serious implementation of the. It could be like transferred to the electoral, and of course for Netanyahu that will be an electoral damage, not something that benefits to him. We have to think about his far right allies, that they are demanding the convene the cabinet to reject the plan. So I think that binding constraint of this plan may not be Gaza at all. It's just a coalition math problem, a miscalculation, that we will see in October as a deadline. So let's see.
Yeah, and I think he wants it to be a referendum on this conflict. He wants to not have to be the one to end it, because he's the one, I need to destroy them. I need Hamas completely obliterated. He's been saying it since day one, ever since the 7th of October attacks. So I think you're right that he wants to let the election happen and be able to say, I'm not the one who actually has to make that decision. And well, if you want to read more about that, I wrote an article about that election a couple weeks ago. So definitely check it out on our website. So on behalf
Absolutely.
of Antoine, Manuel, and myself, I want to thank you for joining us today. If you have any suggestions or comments, please feel free to contact us through the website, whygeopoliticsmatters.com, and we would truly love to hear from you. And if you haven't already, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Bye.
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 For more articles on why geopolitics matters, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter at whygeopoliticsmatter.com.